filled spiritually. It's a great thing. It's the road of life and peace. It's clear who you follow and who you possess. And friends, if you follow the flesh, and if you chase after carnal things, then please understand it's very clear who you do not possess. The Holy Spirit is not in you. You're on the carnal road, the flesh road, if you're following after, if you mind the things of the flesh. If that is your daily situation, that you follow the flesh, sinful things, you don't have the Holy Spirit of God. You're not saved. Notice verse number 7, it says, because the carnal mind is enmity. It's the enemy, the fleshly mind. Those that chase fleshly things, those that are minded that way, it's enemy. They're enemies of God. For it cannot, that mind, that kind of mindset cannot be subject to the law of God. Neither indeed can be. It's obvious this person's lost. So that then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. The reason following the flesh and being carnal is death and leads to hell is because the carnal mind is God's enemy. It doesn't want to follow spiritual things. It's not interested, teens, it's not interested, adults, in the spiritual things of God. It'd rather just follow what the flesh wants to do. And that is the enemy of God. It cannot be, it will not be subject or submissive to God. And the verse says it cannot be. It's God's enemy. It's an old mind. It's the unsaved mind. It's the death mind. It's the sin nature mind. It's the mind that has never been born again. It's the mind that never has received the Holy Spirit who brings new change inside you. Until you are born again by the Holy Spirit, you can never, ever, 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 ever truly submit yourself to God. You can fake your I almost said youth pastor. You don't have one right now, but if you get a new one, you can't fake him. You can fake him, is the point. You can fake your parents. You can fake your pastor. You can fake whatever. But you can't fake out the truth in your heart that you're following the flesh and don't have the Holy Spirit. You're not really submitted to God. You're going through the motions. And you know it. I know it. I know that if the unsaved folks here, you know it. You know it. You know that you're a fake. You know that, oh yeah, you're trying to please some people and do things that are right and look okay on the outside. You know what your heart wants. You know what your heart follows. You know if you're chasing the flesh. You know if you're a flesh chaser. You know it. There are flesh chasers and there's Holy Spirit chasers, and never the two shall meet. And they don't. They cannot be the same. This is why the lost man cannot be successful to keep God's law. His flesh is rebelling against it. Even motivated, as we saw before, by God's law to do the very sins and more of the same sins, the very same moment he's trying to keep it. It's like a dog trying to be a cat. Can't happen until it's recreated, until it's born again. Verse 8 concludes this way. Those that are in the flesh, they cannot please God. Look at it. It's just, they can't do it. They're enemies of God. Listen, you will never, by as good a boy or as good a girl as you try to be, you will never please God. You need to be remade. You need a Holy Spirit to come inside of you and regenerate you. You need a Holy Spirit to come inside you and make you a new man inside of you. And to come and to live there, the victor staying within you. You will never please God if you only have the flesh. Verse 9 shows clearly that the text was speaking about saved and lost people, not about a Christian struggle. Look what it says. But ye are not in the flesh. That's the mindset we've been talking about at verse number 5 of chasing after the flesh. You're not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. If so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. God says that those with the Holy Spirit in them are not chasing the flesh anymore. You're going to struggle with it. And I hate, how many of you Christians would give $1,000 to get rid of your sinful flesh? How many of you would? I certainly would. I think that I would give right now, I'm 40 years old, I'd probably recover. I'd give everything that I had, personally, if I could buy the fact of my flesh not trying to get me to disappoint God anymore and stop tempting me. I would do anything that I could do for that. Verse 9 shows that the text is clearly talking about saved people, and on the other side, those that are lost. Saved, having the Holy Spirit and following the Holy Spirit. The unsaved have only their flesh and chasing their flesh. God says you're not like that mindset sinner. If you are still chasing after the flesh, the Holy Spirit is not in you. You don't belong to God at all. Look at the verse again. But you're not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. You're going to chase after Him. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of His. Be it clear from this verse, there are some charismatics that teach that you get saved, and then there's a second work of grace where you get the Holy Spirit. You didn't have the Holy Spirit when you got saved, somewhere down the line. Be it known that there is no person ever saved, from verse number 9, who does not have the Holy Spirit. The very moment that you get saved, you receive the Holy Spirit. And since all the saved have the Holy Spirit, the verse argues, they don't pursue their sinful flesh. Note verse number 10, and if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin. You're dead to that kind of living. You're dead to that kind of following. You're dead to that kind of chasing of sin. But the Spirit is life because of righteousness. Verse 10 says, because Christ is in us, even though we have this dead flesh, this dead body, the Spirit is life because of righteousness. That is, the Spirit has made us alive to want to do right. Want to do right. You find a Christian who doesn't want to do right, you found a dead person that's not saved. I don't care what you profess. The possession comes in what comes out through your heart and your mind and your life. Saved people who have the Holy Spirit have been made alive inside of themselves to righteousness. They want to do righteousness. They want to. I want to. I want to do what's right. That's because the Holy Spirit is in us. Hear how strongly this is pounded home in the last verse, verse number 11. It says, but if the Spirit of Him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, He that raised up Christ from the dead shall also make alive, quicken your mortal bodies by His Spirit which dwell in you. This is not a funeral verse. It's not a verse talking about the rapture. It's talking about I was dead to God, and I was dead in sin, but I got saved. And when I got saved, the Holy Spirit, the resurrector, the same God, the third person of God that raised up Jesus Christ out of that grave and empowered Him to throw off those death clothes, that same Holy Spirit has come to live inside of me and make me alive. And someone who is dead to God and doesn't want righteousness is not alive. But the Spirit of God has come inside of me, and even though I have this dead flesh that I drag around, He made me alive, and He will make you alive if you will be saved. So often we try to stick round professors of being saved into square possession of being saved. And many times when we encourage our teenagers, our young people, that they should do right more, try harder to do right, whatever, there's no heart for them to do right because they're not born again. And it's no wonder why when they turn that magic age, when they leave home, that they hardly ever darken the church doors again. They have no heart for it. They don't want it. They're not saved. Oh, yes, but when they were 6 years old, whatever, they're not saved. There's no Holy Spirit within them, drawing them to righteousness. If you've got to nag someone for 30 years to do right, something is definitely wrong in the heart. It's not been born again. And I speak specifically to young people who are struggling with these issues. If you just want to do fleshly things, you need to be born again. If you don't want to do right from your heart, the Spirit of God is not in it. Because verse number 11, when the Spirit of God enters into your heart, the way that He raised Jesus Christ out of the dead, He raises up you to live righteously, to make you alive to spiritual things. I want you to take that home, child of God, and get excited that the resurrector lives inside of you. He is the power of Christ's resurrection, and He is sanctifying you. He is leading you. He is enabling you. Don't pack up yet, please. He is enabling you. He is comforting you to be alive to God. When you hear the zippers go and people start moving forward, I think people count my pages, and they understand when I'm about to be done. Child of God, take this away today. When the resurrector